lands were devastating for Native peoples. Not long after settlement slowed and the western frontier was closed, a battle between preservationists, timber barons, and ranchers spurred the creation of national parks and monuments and set the match to land wars that still burn today. Mining companies, four-wheel drive enthusiasts, and those in livestock production have wrestled for control over lands that wildlife need and conservationists fight to protect. It falls to the American public to decide how these lands should be understood and managed. Should these lands be a place for recreation or for industry, for carbon sequestration or for resource extraction, for short-term gain or long-term viability, for everyone or a few individuals? To repeat the obvious, these lands belong to all Americans, yet their use is being determined by a limited number of politicians and rogue players. I want to pause here and confess that the idea that these lands belong to all Americans is a laden one. Public lands are originally and rightfully Native lands. It seems like there is a way to reach some reconciliation, acknowledge the violations of the past, and engage collaboratively on issues of land use, wildlife, water, and sacred sites, among others. Such a partnership happened with the 2016 establishment of Bears Ears, a national monument in Utah, where 5 tribal nations worked with conservationists and federal land managers to protect cultural and ecological attributes. Under the current administration, this conservation effort, along with so many others, has been undermined by those who aren't concerned with Native rights or public interest. In the meantime, the priorities of Native peoples and a majority of other Americans have taken a back seat to the pursuits of fossil fuel interests, political agendas, and rural old boy networks. Within these networks and agendas, an old archetype inextricably linked to these lands has emerged, undeservedly, as a sort of ideological hood ornament in the fight over public lands. This archetype, embodied by certain Western men and women, carries powerful cachet, over 100 years in the making. His avatars might don bolo ties, boots, and big belt buckles. He or she might ride horses or drive ATVs and pickup trucks. An iconic figure lies behind those choices and affectations, looming large in the American imagination and in the career aspirations of children the world over. He is the cowboy, and he exerts an inordinate amount of power in public land management. But take a second glance, and the cowboy isn't what he seems to be. The cowboy made his way westward several decades after Meriwether Lewis, William Clark, and their Corps of Discovery returned from their expedition to the Pacific coast and back. Others followed in their footsteps, looking for economic opportunities and a place to call home. Some of these pilgrims pursued farming, others chased gold, and some began cattle ranching. That's when the cowboy inserted himself into the Western landscape, joining fellow settlers, railroad track laborers, and the armies that protected them in a united campaign to drive Native peoples from their homeland. The white cowboy hero may be a dwindled icon in our own age. His embodiments are fewer and further between, though a wonderful renaissance of the African-American cowboy is resurfacing with the Compton Cowboys in California. But his mythic resonance remains. So potently was it charged by the romantic imaginings that arose around him when he first burst onto the scene. Newspapers, novels, films, and cigarette commercials have glorified him as brave, resourceful, and the very epitome of a hero. But the very term cowboy needs some critical unpacking. The real cowboy, the original, was a hired hand, not a boss rancher. His proud label became a useful catch-all because so many livestock producers relate to cowboys and look like cowboys and represent themselves as cowboys. Folks living outside the West might not even know the difference, but given their meager wages, cowboys both know and feel the difference.